Peace and blessings to you. I am Michael Bernard Beckwith, and on behalf of the Leadership Council of the Association for Global New Thought, we have a message for you. Our hearts are wide open, actually torn open, regarding the mayhem that has occurred in Charleston, South Carolina, at the Emmanuel Church. And we want you to know that we're holding this particular incident in prayer, and we're calling upon all of us to go deep within themselves to find that kernel of compassion, as described as the understanding of the lack of understanding. That sense of compassion that lifts us all up so that simultaneously we're saying no to events like this, but we're saying yes to something higher emerging as a species, as a society, as a global family. We hold us all in prayer during this time. Peace.
Namaste, I'm Reverend Temple Hayes. This is the moment right now as we're all facing the situation in Charleston with families, and more important, with lives. Every life matters. Hold true the statement that united we stand, and divided we are merely a distraction. Let us take this moment and stand for life and how much life matters. Join us in prayer. Join us in the consciousness of AG&T, that it is time for a new beginning, and let us hold that together in prayer.
I'm Dr. Roger Teal. At this tragic time, I invite us, as our hearts are broken, to remember that they also can be broken open to acknowledging the universal love that is within and all around us. And may we hold those families and that church community and all the people of Charleston in our compassion, knowing that a balm of love is there for them. This is something we can do because we're all one. So we can lift up our hearts right now and embrace and bless them. And also remember that chaos and travesty can be generative. They can actually generate a higher knowing. And may we all know that out of this pain, we'll create and build something that contributes to the advancement of humankind. May love guide us. May our hearts remain open. God bless you.
Reverend Wendy Craig Purcell. This is a time for us to look at how we can change the conversation around what's happened in Charleston. We hold the high vision of a different kind of world, a world of peace and justice and safety for all, while at the very same time allowing our hearts to be open to the very real loss and tragedy that has happened. And so when we are in conversation about this with family, friends, coworkers, let us not move the conversation into a place of separation and hatred and revenge, but let us lift the conversation higher to that which heals, that which unites, that which blesses us all and brings forth a world of peace and love and harmony. Namaste.
I'm Dr. Ken Gordon from Centers for Spiritual Living. The universe is trying to tell us something right now. It's very, very apparent. It's open. This is not an isolated instance. This is a demonstration of the consciousness of our society that right now requires a changing. What we require is a greater and a bigger idea than we've had before. A bigger idea around spirit, a bigger idea around love, a bigger idea around light. What I wish and desire to have happen and occur through these experiences is that our society learns that we work in harmony and we live in harmony, and that we move forward with the joy that is ours by our inherent birth. Accepting that this must be the reality, I simply accept it as my truth and refuse from this point forward to back down or break away or to hide or to run from this particular idea. I will no longer withdraw or withhold. I simply am going to stand for the truth in these circumstances every time they occur, recognizing and knowing the truth behind them. My blessings and my empathy goes to the families in Charleston and to our society, knowing that we grow forward into the joy and the light and the beauty that is the truth of who we are. Thank you.
David Alexander, and I just want to invite all of us into a prayerful time of healing and compassion and conversation. If you're feeling what I'm feeling right now, you're feeling vulnerable, you're feeling open, you're feeling raw, and that's as it should be. There is no active compassion in the world without empathy, and there is no empathy without vulnerability. So I invite you to join in prayer, in healing conversations with your neighbors, with your friends, with your family, in your church communities, Let's use this time to really come together, to feel together, and to heal together. We can do this. We are the ones, and this is the time. Peace and blessings.
So what I know in this moment is that simply is, there is a oneness. In this moment right here, right now, there is love. There is God, sometimes called Spirit, the Divine, Mother, Father, the Sacred. Whatever label it may have, there's simply an isness. There is simply a being. And as I allow myself to connect to that being, as I allow myself to feel that field that is being channeled, that is being made available through and as me and through and as everyone here, as I connect to that, I am reminded of the truth of what I am for and what is through me, what is for all of us and what is through all of us. And so knowing that this message today, that this gathering today is a sacred event where we are coming to be reminded and be uplifted and being inspired as to the truth of who we are. And as I connect to that knowing, I celebrate that the consciousness, the general understanding is being elevated. That the message that we've already heard today is just a sign that the universe is saying something, that this is the time to both say no to the existing ideas of hatred and lack and limitation and say yes. Yes to a greater idea of acceptance, of love, of truth. And I know that this is an understanding and an awareness that I embody. That this is a clarity that is ever surfacing and being revealed through and as me and everyone gathered here. And I know as I issue and as I place this blessing upon everyone gathered, there is an activation, an initiation that is allowing all of us to be awakened in such deep, profound, and truthful and loving and compassionate ways. Understanding that without vulnerability, there can be no empathy, and without empathy, there can be no compassion. That there is deep truth in that understanding that sometimes we do not understand. And that I know that in that understanding of not understanding, I surrender. I allow myself to simply trust to the knowing that there is a perfect experience unfolding. And that for as much as the conditions and the symptoms and the effects in the world might not appear perfect, I know that they are. I know that what I am using these experiences for is as an opportunity to look at myself and look within and ask myself how it is I can be the peace and the love and the acceptance and the joy that I wish to see in the world. For that is where my work is. That is where my energy and my clarity is allowing me to awaken, to transcend through that gateway of initiation and to delve more clearly in the practicing of that presence. So that when the events of the world unfold, when the events of the world and when the effects and the conditions would suggest otherwise, when the universe would tell us that there is a consciousness that is in need of elevation, in need of inspiration, in need of acceptance, in need of love, I allow myself to be used as a channel for love. I allow myself to be in a state of surrender. And so I know today as we enter into this clarity that we are all lifted, and as we are individually lifted, the one is lifted. And so with a deep sense of joy, knowing that the field is activated, knowing that we are all awakening to our spiritual magnificence, I release with joy, knowing that the clarity of my knowing is that spiritual authority, that demand upon the creative law that leads to an inevitability, that it can only be as I say. And so celebrating that joy, I invite you to join with me in claiming this for yourself by saying, and so it is. Yes, so I am God. Say after me, I am God. I am God. Say it again, I am God.
I am God.
Okay, now look to the person to the left and say, you are God. You are God. Now there's a person, if you spoke to a wall there, remember, the wall is God in form. Okay? You are God. Look to the person to the right and say, you are God. We're going to get that together. We're going to get that worked out. I wanted to show you that video because there's such truth. I mean, it was a beautiful synchronicity that the leaders, the Association for Global New Thought, they are sort of like a collection of different organizations. There's Unity, there's Centers for Spiritual Living, and a number of sort of non-denominational churches, such as Beckwith's Agape Center. And they happened to be meeting on the Wednesday and the Thursday. And so what they did was they realized, oh, they got the news, and they came together and they put that video. And I thought that it was so beautiful, because I know when I woke up on the Thursday, and bless her heart, one of our members, Flo, she'd already posted a little prayer about this on our Facebook page, and so I was like, okay, what's happened? And I went and I started to look around, and as I read, I heard pretty much an event where a 21-year-old white man had walked into an all-black church, sat down for an hour in Bible study, and then had decided to kill 9 people. Also telling one of the people that he was going to allow her to live, so that she could tell the story, because it turns out that his intention was to start a race war. Now, I want you to personalize this now, because we're in a field here. We've the field, and there is safety, and there is truth, and there is oneness in here. But I want you to imagine now you're in a Science of Mind class. You're in Foundations, or you're learning about Troward, and someone's come in for the first class, and they're sitting there with you, and you're thinking, oh, this is someone who's new, and they're interested. And then we're just getting in, we've gone through the prayers, and just imagine someone then decides to start like this with a gun. Now, when I connected with that, my heart was torn open. There is something extremely profound when we find ourselves in witness to these events. And I don't know about you, but it tore my heart open. I started to cry. I found myself leaking tears. And as I watched that video, I was working for it for the day. I put together a prayer that I pushed out through Facebook and through the love letter that we send out. And then I watched that video a little later on. I thought, how perfect is this? Because the message that is flowing is reminding all of us of such a clear and simple truth. The understanding of a lack of understanding. Because as I listen to those words that Michael Beckwith shared, compassion is that understanding that there's a lack of understanding. How true is that? I cannot understand what it is like to be sitting in that Bible study class and to witness people being killed. I can't understand that. I don't have that experience. I can't understand why the choice was made. I may have opinions about it, I may have ideas, but I was not that young man. And yet I know that young man is God. So immediately there's a jelly pill, because now we have to stop, and personally my role, and I don't expect many people to do this, but my role is to go into prayer for this young man. This young man who is an eternal soul, God in form, who must have had such a journey to have been in such a place of lack and hatred and dismay and despair as to make such a reprehensible, such a terribly unwholesome choice. There's no way of condoning it, yet he's still God. So I don't have the understanding of who he is and what was going on. I don't have the understanding of the people that were there. But what I know is that this is about going into prayer. This is a call to prayer for me. As the hearts are broken up, I love, there was another saying in there, there's the balm of love, loving embrace and blessings. That when I look to my spiritual practice, what I do understand is that every time I'm in life and I'm feeling challenged by the events that are unfolding, I'm feeling there's an emotional storm, I am feeling I've lost my center, I'm wondering why relationship is dissolving, I'm wondering why my health is falling apart, I'm wondering why my work is bringing chaos into my life. What the experiences of my life have brought me to is to recognize that every time I pause and I go into the silence and I look to my prayer, I look to my affirmative prayer work, and I go into my prayer chair and I go into the silence, that is where I am most likely to experience that balm of loving embrace and blessings. And as then I do my own work, and as I feel the shift within myself, as I feel myself transcended from that broken heart, I realize the heart is breaking open, and through this a love is pouring. And so I almost have an image of that love just pouring out into the world. And so as we witness events like this, the most powerful thing that we can do, and here we are, I believe we are participating in and a part of one of the best teachings in the world, if not the best teaching in the world. Because what Science of Mind says is that we can behold that, and we can know the truth of that, and we can know the truth of everyone involved in that, and we can know that we are here to both transcend and to transform. Transcend getting caught up in the clutches of the worldly effects, getting caught up in the emotional despair, and honoring it and recognizing that for us to have compassion, we need to have vulnerability, and vulnerability allows us to have empathy, so that we can begin to understand when I think and put myself in that place, how vulnerable that leaves me feeling. But then I step into my spiritual practice and connect with the truth of my being that tells me that actually vulnerability is the most powerful place of all. That when I can find myself allowing and trusting that that vulnerability is lifting me up and creating more within me that allows me to be that channel of truth, creating within me that focus of love, that feeling of love. I can feel my feet planted upon the ground and my heart filled, and I can know that my body is alive with loving light energy. I feel a sense of bliss, and it's in that truth then that I look upon events in the world and I see them as God. And in seeing them as God in that fashion, I am transforming them. And what a beautiful thing it is that as an organization, the Centers for Spiritual Living, the Association of Global New Thought, the Center for Spiritual Living Saskatoon, that is the truth that we can encourage and inspire ourselves to enter into, so that we are transformed by the experience where our hearts are torn open, and yet we step into a truth where it becomes yet one more rite of initiation, one more step upon this journey of spiritual practice, and how beautiful that is. For as tragic as it might appear, there is an eternal truth that is love. And so in this moment, as was encouraged in that moment in that video, it is now our opportunity to lift the conversation in our hearts. And that this allows us then to enter into conversations as a light caller, as a light worker. That as we've done our work then, as we've gone through that broken heart and we've felt the sympathy, and we may have layers of sympathy, we may need to come back again and again and again. But then when we come out into the world, that then we're entering into that place of truth, and that we are lifting and blessing the hearts around us because we found our centeredness. And that's the essence. That's what the Science of Mind, that's what the Centers for Spiritual Living are about. And so there's a bigger idea. We can work and love in harmony, and we can heal together. So I wanted to spend some time honoring that, because I wanted to connect with that. I think as a Center for Spiritual Living, my vision is that one part of my responsibility with you all is when you come here, you want to be inspired, but you also want to have a little bit of guidance perhaps. You might want to hear about my perspectives about the things that are going on in the world. And as a minister of a church, which is what I am, I hear about the idea of someone doing that, and I need to face that. I need to connect with that, and I need to share that. So it was interesting because I had, for the love letter, which is our newsletter by the way, but I need to call it a love letter apparently. For the love letter I had something I was going to write up about the healthy balance of giving and receiving, and it's like, no, I'm going to put the prayer up there. I'm going to focus on that, because that is a big event. And we can keep coming back to the healthy balance of living and or receiving and giving. But right now, this event's just happened, and I think that is a really good topic to, and you'll hear me doing this, connecting back to things in the world. The reason why is we're a center for spiritual living. So I want to inspire you in that idea of how to live spiritually, which includes being in the world and seeing news events. I know I've talked about this before, and I'll talk about it again. When I first started deepening in my journey, when I went through, when I went through my initiation and started to awaken, one of the first things I did was I started to shut off the news. Anyone here done that? Turn off the news? Yeah. Because I would see the news and it would shake me. It would open my heart and I wouldn't know how to handle it. And I spent probably at least a year not reading any newspapers, listening to no television, no radio, didn't do any Google News, none of that. In fact, Google News wasn't even around then. And so I just shut myself off from news. That was what I was needed. That's what I needed, and that was perfect. That being said, I brought myself back into the news when I realized that as a part of my life, it could be a spiritual practice. It could be a call to prayer. So that to me is some guidance perhaps on how to live spiritually. What I did want to talk about though, so I'm going to have a little bit of time to talk about that today, is the healthy balance of giving and receiving. So I want to talk about that because one of the core parts of the vision I have is community. And in community, one of the things that happens is that, and I know my experience when I've been involved with church, with the center, is that as I wake up more and more, I have this urge to give. Because what's happened is that I have been awoken by a teaching or by experiences, by the science of mind, by the classes, and I know that it has changed my life. And so what happens is as my heart is broken open, I feel this yearning and this urge to give. Now, this is the trick though, because within that there is subtle potential slippery slope. There's subtle traps that can happen. And I wanted to talk about the healthy balance of giving and receiving because for as much as we want to give, we also need to check in that we're receiving. Though one of the things that I was reminded of last night, actually, and I love this process of preparing for these talks because the Saturday night my talks will be all over the floor and I'll be like, pieces all over the place and I'm trying to put it together and I'm like, oh, how's this going to come together? And then, of course, it comes together perfectly because I get myself into a state of surrender. And as I was working through, a story came to mind. I remembered that when I was younger, whenever someone paid me a compliment, I'd brush it off. I'd say something that would really be about not accepting it. And so I got really good at that. And as I look back at that, I realized that that was me not receiving some love. And it might have been a very small element of love, but that was me not accepting receiving of someone noticing me and going, thank you, good job, well done. I appreciate that. So that was just a part of it. But then I found myself, I was not receiving many things. That was just a symptom of something far deeper, that I didn't feel myself worthy of receiving. Because you see, it's easier to enter into a mode of giving. I found personally, it's easy to give. In fact, what can happen is I can get so good at giving that then there's an imbalance. Because I am giving, and then I find myself then needing to take a break, perhaps feeling tired, feeling burnt out, perhaps feeling like I've worked so hard and it's been just me. And what happens there is that healthy imbalance, that when I've seen it in my life has been a suggestion or an indicator that is time for me to connect within and ask myself, well, what is there that's alive within me that feels that I'm not worthy to receive? Because if these teachings are saying that what manifests in our life is a product of our consciousness, if I am consciously or unconsciously not receiving, and I'm seeing in my life that the abundance and the vision I have for my life isn't showing up, that says there's something in the way. And there's nothing outside of me that's in the way. It's all within. So there's something inside of me that's in the way. Now, that's an interesting thing. I was talking this morning with Robin. I have the beautiful experience of building with different people, so I'm always looking to stay. So if you're willing to build it, let me know. And I get a chance to connect with people. And I was talking with Robin about this and realizing that it's like, if you imagine there's a lake, and your consciousness is, everything that you're consciously aware of is above the lake. And your subconscious is beneath the lake, right? And so what happens is when we go into this journey, what we start to do is we awaken. When we're in that state of pre-awakening, that pre-initiation stage, we're asleep. We're victims, right? And we're kind of sitting looking out over the lake. It's like we're on holiday, okay? And then we're seeing what's going on, and there are clouds, and there'll be a storm, and the lake gets whipped up, and then we find ourselves, like running for cover away from the lake. Ring a bell? Running for cover away from the things, denying they're going on, or being in anger and shouting at the weather. And this is the kind of things that we can do. But what happens is then suddenly something happens where there's been one storm too many, and that was the final straw. And something, that spiritual 2x4, wakes us up. And it can happen around relationship, health, work, money. It can be something significant in our life that stops us and causes us and prompts and provokes us to ask. And so this lake is like conscious now. The subconsciousness is what's beneath the lake. And you start to then look down into the waters. And you realize, oh, it's kind of murky. So then what you decide to do, well, maybe you can see that there are some rocks near the surface. So maybe there's this natural curiosity to dig down. So you dig down and you pick up the first rock and it's all slimy. And you realize as you picked up a whole bunch of sediment and silt got kicked up. So now the water is all murky and you're looking at the rock and you go, oh, wow, well, I love you, I forgive you, I bless you. And so you clean it off and then you put it to the side. So you brought that part of shadow, that subconscious part of your experience, something that you've forgotten, you've brought it to light, and in the moment you've done that, it's no longer shadow. You've brought it to light just by looking. And that's the beautiful thing, because this perfect journey is you being God, looking at your experiences, which was you being God, and asking, how can I forgive this? How can I love this? Because this is a valid part of me. And so you put it down. And then when you look back to the water, you go, oh, look at that. There's another 3 rocks underneath. And then it starts to clear. You've ever put sort of mud in water and stir it up, and then it clears down and it goes clear? Well, the water starts to clear. So then you reach in. So that's after you do a big movement, a big shift. You may have a break for a week or 2, and then you look back again, and you return to your work, and you dig in for the next rock. And now more sediment and silt gets picked up. Now, here's the kicker. For as long as you're alive, there are rocks in the lake. Doesn't feel like fun, but here's the thing. And I know you're laughing, because I laugh at that too, from the sense of, really? Really? Don't I get done? Don't I deserve a break? Well, you do. You get done in the sense that you give yourself breaks. You get to go at the pace that you want to go. So what happens is, as you dig further down, each of these rocks you put to the side of the lake beside you, they're rocks of experience. They're wisdom. When you see, oh, well, I had this partner and I can't believe that I did that, or I allowed this boss to do this, or I really still hate that ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, or my daughter, my son did this, or whatever it might be. Then you come to forgive and love that in yourself. And these teachings teach us to take personal responsibility, to start looking within and ask, well, what did I do to sink this rock to the bottom? What of my choices was in this? And so we put that down. So the beautiful thing about that journey of reaching in, this is where we are both giving and receiving to ourselves. Because we give in the sense of reaching out to sort of like do that work, and then we receive, because as we forgive, that's how we find stuff cleaned up. So I shared that story because if we're finding ourselves in a mode of giving but not receiving, that may well be that we're digging in to understand, or we're working with other people, or we're giving to other people, but we're not stopping then to receive. So one of the things that's very clear for me is, as we get into community, I want to make sure there's an awareness that every time there's some aspect of service, I mean, Dave, I want to honor Dave because he's been doing some amazing service on sound and video, and he's taking a break. And I like that. I like that because what Dave is doing now, he's saying, I'm honoring, I need to receive right now. So we're having people that are stepping up that are going to help us out. And I think it's a beautiful thing. And I know Dave's not alone. There's been lots of people who have been giving in this community over the years. And I mean, I'm only here, so I wasn't able to honor people and recognize before I came here, just so you know. But I'm here now, and I make a point of doing that. I make a point of recognizing and saying thank you. And I honor you, Dave. I honor you for what you've done and for you taking that time to receive now, because that's healthy balance. But what that also shows me in the conversation with the board and with the spiritual team is that, or the spiritual circle, is that I want to make sure that when we have, like, you know, when it comes to audio and video, that we've got a team of people, that we've got a leader in training, and we've got a few people, there's a pool of people. And then that way it's not on one person, that we're actively making sure that someone is making sure that team is cleared out and we have everything that needs to be done. We're going to video it today and make sure that we document it up so that we can make training easy. So that what's happening then is we're creating the ability to give and receive. The community and the care structure that I've been talking and I'll continue talking about actually has all of this engineered into it. And that's one of the beautiful things because, and I'm feeling the beautiful sort of taking a tangent here on what I was going to talk about. Because when I think about all that structure, that's the masculine. That's the father. When I think Happy Father's Day, any fathers in here? You know, Happy Father's Day to us, right? Great stuff. And when I think about my role as father, there are certain ways in which I show up where I bring a certain structure to my daughter. But I also think about that there's a part of me that is also feminine, that is mother. And just because I am gender, that doesn't limit me just to being father because I am male. I am mother and I'm father. And what's been an interesting journey for me is when I went to the Newport Conference in Canada, in Toronto, a couple of weeks ago, I got to sit, I was in the second row on the aisle in front of Michael Beckwith. I wasn't in the front row, but that was perfect because I was literally where he was standing. He was right in front of me. It's like where literally where the second row is from me, and his sight line is like he's looking down, and he's in that space of channeling, and it's like he's looking at me, and literally, and people were saying afterwards, like, I was really jealous because I could see, like, there was this, and I was meant to be there. And what was really interesting for me was that I know that as I sat there and I listened to that man channeling and being a vehicle of God, that I wasn't so much paying attention to the words that he was saying, so much as I was recognizing that I was but the tip of a force of light and love that was there present just as he was, and my intention was set then on supporting and lifting him and holding him in that consciousness, adding my awareness to his awareness. And I know that at some deep level there was an awareness of what was going on, and I could feel myself having a deepening, a deeper activation and initiation through that, and there was a clarity as I recognized how he shows up. And then I got to meet with someone on the Saturday. Her name is Andrea Menard. Anyone know her? She's a Saskatoon gal. She heard that I'm the spiritual director, and she was like, oh, well, wonderful, wonderful. And we got talking. And so, because she's into music, she's moved out to Vancouver. And I said, my vision is for live music in our center. And it's not happening right now, but it's going to happen. And so I want to hear what you have to say. Turns out what we got together was nothing to do with that. What we got together for was she talked about the idea of, Carmian, you've got the father down really well. The intellectual stuff, the structure, you've nailed it. Like, you get that. But here's the thing. When was the last time you really felt? When was the last time you really cried? And I mean sobbed. See, the mother doesn't speak. She feels. She nurtures. And we were sitting at the table, and like her hands were around mine. And like, I was literally, I was just, my hands are like that. She put her hands, she was like nurturing me. And she shared with me some messages that clarified, oh, how powerful and meaningful it is. And I realized as I connected with what Michael Beckwith was doing, I saw him in 2009 and again a couple of weeks ago. And his pace, he can go really quick. Because when the masculine really, when the sacred masculine wants to speak, it can speed up and it can get fast and fast. And she said, I know the feminine energy around Michael Beckwith has been telling him, slow down and feel. So how powerful it is that there I am, the man who people have said to me, Carmen, your energy is so big and you can speak so fast, and it's still going to happen from time to time, but you may already be noticing a shift. Because what Andrea and other people shared with me was a message and a clarity, and it was so exquisite because Andrea said, I've spent some time learning how to speak masculine. Learning how to relate masculine so that in this moment I can actually convey this to you. And so what I realized was instantly, it was like great, because now when I learn about how to be present and how to feel, that I can feel the energy of the room and the congregation as I'm speaking, which allows me, just for as much as I realized that I had a certain talk prepared in a certain direction, it's taken a turn because the energy and the denominator of consciousness in the room is directing that. That we are weaving a web together. That this is not about one person getting up. There is a collective, co-creative consciousness, and we're all weaving it together. And what I've had is a series of messages, and I've had a set of realizations and people bringing me to these divine gifts so I can connect with the truth of that. And it feels wonderful. I'm aware of my feet as much as I am aware of my head. And through that I can feel my heart. And as I feel it, I can connect in with you. And I'm watching even in this moment, the shift in the engagement and the energy. Now I'm sharing this because I've got these gifts of communication and I've walked through these rite of passages to be in this place. But I'm no different from you because we all have this. 2,500 years ago, the Greeks would say that you're not a genius, but that you have a genius. And the reason why they said that is that everyone has a genius. The problem that's happened for us is that of recent years, artists and whatnot have connected to the idea of being a genius. And when you do that, suddenly the pressure's on, because it's all about you. You've got to deliver. When you recognize, no, I have a genius. And I was in the car this morning, Robin was saying, wow, I can really feel your buzzing. And, like, you breathe. And, the funny thing was, I'm there playing with my keys because the label's fallen off of the set of keys. And I said, I'm really relaxed. But I know what's happening is there's something that's activating through me. And there's far more than this physical body that you see that's going on. There is a divine experience, and we're all divine distributors. And so, when we connect, I want to share one last quote from the Science of Mind, because I haven't even done a quote today. In The Science of Mind, which is our book, it was written by Ernest Holmes, which is, I suppose, our holy textbook, you might look at it. It's the book that these teachings are all built around, written by Ernest Holmes. And about a third of that book are on the teachings of Jesus Christ. The teachings of Jesus Christ, a third of the book. So, you know, sometimes in Centers for Spiritual Living, the G word is a bit risky, and the J word is a bit risky, because people have got past experiences through their religious association. And I say, no, I'm God, I claim that. And I'm Christ consciousness. And so in in Matt 13:12, there is, whosoever hath, to him shall be given, and he shall have more abundance. But whosoever hath not, from him shall be taken even that he hath. So let's think about that. When you have, it will be given to you, and you'll have more abundance. And when you don't have, it will be taken from you, even what you have. Now, it doesn't, on the surface, make sense. And this is where Western civilization got the Bible wrong a lot of the time, because they literally translated it. But the moment you look metaphysically and you go to cause and effect, and you think about what these teachers are saying, what they're saying is, when you have a consciousness abundance, more will be given to you. When you have a lack of abundance, a lack of consciousness, then it will be taken away. You created in both cases. You were the cause in both cases. So this is why the healthy balance of giving and receiving is so essential. Because a healthy, abundant consciousness is one that understands how to participate in the law of circulation. Understands that if we don't give, we're stagnating growth. So we give. And so we're going to change the offertory today, because we're actually going to bring the offering up, and I'm going to bless the offering. Because I want to consciously stand in the truth of what that represents. Because we're receiving, and I want to honor the receiving. Okay? And then I want to give, and I want to receive. And so when we understand, when we have that consciousness, knowing that this is universal substance, then everything that we desire will be brought to us. But it's, as you know, one of the other great travesties of the Bible is that people have mistranslated that, you know, money is the root of all evil. That's not what the Bible says. Man's love of money is the root of all evil. So it's understanding that when we get attached to the money and what it represents, that then pulls us away from that consciousness. That pulls us away from a consciousness of knowing there's more than enough. That pulls us away from a healthy balance of giving and receiving. Okay, so as you go forward into this week, and in the coming weeks, just check in with yourself. How am I both receiving and giving? What am I doing to honor that I should be receiving, and honoring the space within me, and honoring that sense of abundance within me? And how am I giving? The giving will probably be easier. You'll be doing that without thinking. But I invite you to spend some time and to consciously, through that knowing that I have abundance consciousness, that I am God informed, that I am worthy. I am worthy of receiving whatever it is I'm supposed to receive. And that my consciousness and my clarity of that infinite substance is what's going to be the cause of making that happen. Okay, so I love and I bless you. I love and I bless you. Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.